Once again, the DNC is making news for interesting decisions under the leadership of Chairman Tom Perez. If you recall, Tom Perez was elected DNC chair in February of 2017. That was after the tumultuous 2016 election, primary election, which split up the Democratic Party, had a crazy convention. And Keith Ellison, who was a congressman at the time, had run against Tom Perez, and it was a very tight race with many others, including Pete Buttigieg, included in that race. We have one of my favorite DNC members here to join us because it's now a big question about, like, how does the convention function? What's going to happen with the convention in light of COVID? And what does it mean for, other than just the illusion of the party and the theatrics of the party, what does it mean for the rules of the party and how the party is structured? Melahat Rafi is a DNC member out of California. She was just reelected in the midst of COVID, and she's also a political consultant. I've known her working with women. Full disclosure, she's on the board of Matriarch, and we are so grateful to have her leadership and guidance. Melahat, man, did you? Of course you knew, because you've been in the DNC for a while, but I think from the get-go, just for our audience who may not be familiar with the politics of the DNC membership, not all DNC members are the same. So sometimes we hear, like, the DNC is horrible, and we have to pull back the curtain a little bit and remind folks that there are a lot of personalities and a lot of politics in the DNC. So could you just elaborate on that a bit before we get into the convention?
Sure. The DNC as a whole is one thing, but we're all individual members. As a member, this is my second term. Proximity to power matters when you want to know information. And I've been supportive of Chairman Perez since he was elected. I was, as you know, a whip for Keith Ellison. And so my proximity to power is very far, since I was not part of Team Tom from the very beginning. So I'm finding out just as any regular member would find out. So there's no advance notice. But I do agree with what they're doing. I think that a virtual convention is the best way to go. I'm glad that the Democrats are the party of science and facts and reality, and know that this virus is real and it's a real threat to the safety and health of fellow Americans, regardless of political party. And so I'm proud of our party for taking the steps that they have. And there's a lot of unknowns. So at first it was pushing it back a month, not knowing where we would be. And then realizing quickly, and I'm incredibly proud of the leadership team for being able to put together this virtual convention. Do we know what's going to happen? No, but I do know that they've taken care of making sure that we are following the rules and the bylaws. We all voted remotely to have a virtual convention. And we got an email this morning letting us know that there were different platform committee rules and so on and so forth that are going to be virtual starting now. I think I forwarded you that so that you were aware of the schedule. So unprecedented times is something we hear a lot, but trying to operate in that is difficult. You mentioned we had our DNC reelection here in California in the midst of COVID, and it went from being in person to being virtual to just communicating with our executive board members by phone or by text. And it was different than we normally expect. We didn't have the results for over 2 months because of the shelter-in-place order here in California. And so, some of those things I think about as being first world problems when we have the communities of color so much affected with the disparity of how they're affected with this illness. And those are the things I want to focus on, is how we get back to winning in America, how we get the White House back, how we maintain our lead in the House and expand on that. We saw some really awesome primary turnouts a couple of days ago where the progressive wing and progressive winning. We see a sea shift, and then just most importantly, take back the White House.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think what the criticism was, from what I was seeing from DNC members in a very public way, that, just to remind folks, like, this kind of public criticism doesn't happen a lot in the Democratic Party. And it's really since 2016 that you're seeing these complaints openly aired and criticisms openly aired, since under Howard Dean, the lead up, yes, like I would say every decade or so you have these little divisions, but this is like a whole other level. They're talking about how votes are conducted, how transparency works, is there accountability, do people know what's in the budget? I mean, you and I are very familiar with these kinds of conversations. And so when you look at the fact that the platform committee, which I was on in 2016, is taking place the beginning of July. There's the drafting committee hearing end of June to beginning of July, and mid-July. They have 4 meetings there. These are appointed positions. We have to be very clear about that. They weren't elected. the platform, you know, in 2016, Bernie was able to get a few key members of the platform committee, and Hillary had the majority, and it was aired publicly, and people were very involved in the process, and it made great TV because, of course, you know, there were people like Neera Tanden and then like Keith Ellison and Cornel West. I mean, it was a beautiful expression of democracy that led up to the platform voting meeting, which I was on. The general, it was also all appointed people. So none of us were elected to those positions. And I think what's frustrating for a lot of DNC members like yourself who work very hard, who spend money, raise money to get elected, is that they're left out of these very critical and crucial conversations like, what is the platform of the Democratic Party going to look like? What are the rules of the Democratic Party going to be? Because those committees, for the most part, are appointed either by the chairman himself or by the presidential, you know, the top contenders, the presidential primary, which, you know, is understandable, but oftentimes those people reflect campaign staff and not the DNC members who put their blood, sweat, and tears, go to every single meeting. So, you know, I find it interesting that in light of all of this, you know, DNC members do get to go to the convention and vote on big pieces, but it's after it's been like delivered as a package. Is that fair to say?
That is fair to say. And I don't think it's just this administration. It's kind of unfortunately been the way that it's been going. And you're right. Since 2016, and, you know, for me, candidly, I wasn't there before 2016. I have seen a change in how people are reacting. And now that I'm not an outsider completely, sort of an insider, not insider enough to know what's going on ahead of time, but insider with a title, I suppose, I understand the frustration. And I just at the national party, but we have the same complaints at different state parties as well. Yeah. And what I want to say is, like, rules, you know, that's how the system is built. Whether you're progressive or moderate, you know, at the end of the day, we're Democrats. We have these changes to make.
Thank you for watching and listening to the Nomiki Show. Make sure to click like and subscribe on YouTube and share with everybody on social media. And of course, if you're not a patron already, please join us on patreon.com/The Nomiki Show for as low as $5 a month. That money makes a huge difference. We don't have the corporate money coming in. We're not cable news that's raking in the dough from advertisers right now as everybody's sitting at home and watching. It is really you guys who are keeping us together. So please consider being a patron. And for those of you who have already, we are incredibly grateful to you.